Hey everyone, welcome to today's Explainer. I am incredibly excited to dive into this one with you because we're going on a seriously fascinating journey today. Together, we're going to climb the global economic ladder, starting way down at the basic, everyday services that keep our local communities ticking, all the way up to the creation of pure, globally shifting ideas. It's a massive transformation, one that has completely redefined how we work, trade, and just generally connect as human beings. So here's our roadmap for the Explainer. We'll be hitting 1. Everyday services, 2. The world on the move, 3. Entering the knowledge sector, 4. The gold-collar economy, 5. The outsourcing revolution, and finally wrapping up with 6. The digital divide. Let's get right into it. But hey, before we start climbing that ladder, I've got a bit of a mystery from our source material to throw your way. What exactly do a chief executive officer sitting in a high-rise in New York and a medical transcriptionist working at a desk in Bangalore actually have in common? Keep that question rolling around in the back of your mind, because to understand the answer, we really have to start at the foundation.
Section 1, Everyday Services, and the Rise of the Tertiary Sector. It's absolutely crucial we ground ourselves here, mostly because this is where the vast majority of us actually work. This sector is the rock-solid base of our modern economy.
So what are tertiary activities, really? Basically, it's the commercial output of services. It relies on specialized skills, experience, and practical training in exchange for payment. We aren't talking about mining raw materials out of the earth or assembling cars on a belt. We're talking about human expertise. This could be your local plumber, a teacher in a classroom, or, honestly, my absolute favorite example, the incredible Dabbawallas in Mumbai, who expertly deliver home-cooked lunches to 175,000 customers every single day. They are all providing a service that gets consumed. And this shift, it was a massive historical leap for us. We evolved from secondary activities, traditional manufacturing that leans heavily on production techniques, machinery, and processing physical raw materials in a factory, to a tertiary focus. We essentially traded in factory machines for human experience, knowledge, and professionally trained workers. Now, as the types of work evolved, the places where we traded that work had to change too. We moved from these quasi-urban, rudimentary rural centers, places with periodic, weekly markets catering just to immediate local needs, over to sprawling urban hubs. These urban centers offer manufactured goods, sure, but more importantly, highly specialized markets for labor, housing, and professional services like consultants and lawyers. Moving to Section 2, the world on the move, and the giants of the tertiary sector. Because for those specialized urban hubs to actually function, we need infrastructure. We rely on massive global systems of transport and communication to make these everyday services possible on a grand scale. So how does modern society calculate this kind of mobility? When you or I think of distance, we usually just think of kilometers or miles, the actual route length. But the true deciding factors in a service economy, they're time distance and cost distance. The sheer expense of traveling and the time it takes are what actually shape our global networks. And speaking of mobility, creating new industries, check this out. This is a truly surprising fact from the source data. Look at the absolute dominance of tourism. It represents a staggering 40% of total global GDP. 40%. It's literally the world's single largest tertiary activity. To put that into human terms, the tourism industry accounts for 250 million registered jobs worldwide. That scale is just mind-blowing. And it's not just hotel staff, right? It's retail, craft industries, local transport, and entertainment all feeding into this gigantic economic engine. So what's driving those 250 million jobs? Think about your last trip. People are fundamentally drawn by 4 main things: climate, like a sunny Mediterranean beach; landscape, like spectacular untouched mountains; history and art; and finally, culture and economy, where tourists seek out unique, affordable experiences like staying in heritage homes in Goa. But tourism isn't just about vacations anymore. It's evolved into these highly specialized subsectors. A really fascinating example is the rise of medical tourism, and India has actually emerged as a leading country here. They have world-class metropolitan hospitals catering specifically to overseas patients who are willing to cross the globe just for specialized care. Just to anchor that with a real number, way back in 2005, 55,000 patients from the US alone traveled to India for medical treatment, and the sector has only skyrocketed since then. It really shows how specialized services can completely bypass national borders when the cost and the quality align.
All right, stepping up the ladder to Section 3, entering the knowledge sector and quaternary activities. Let's see how this builds into an even more specialized tier where physical labor shifts pretty much entirely into mental labor. Okay, so quaternary is kind of a mouthful, but what does it actually mean? These are advanced services centered entirely around information, collecting it, producing it, and disseminating it. This is the realm of software developers writing code, mutual fund managers analyzing markets, and statisticians crunching data. They're the new engines driving modern economic growth.
In fact, this shift is so profound that today, over half of all workers in developed economies are employed in this knowledge sector. Over half. It's fundamentally replaced primary agriculture and secondary manufacturing as the main source of jobs in advanced economies. Information is literally the new raw material.
Which brings us to Section 4, the gold-collar economy, or Quinary Activities. We are at the very top tier of our economic structure now, and this is a highly specialized, subtly different beast from your standard knowledge work. Because while quaternary workers collect and process the information, Quinary activities are all about the highest possible level of decision-making. It's the creation, rearrangement, and interpretation of entirely new ideas and technologies. This is the exclusive playground of senior business executives, high-ranking government officials, and elite research scientists. The source material captures this dynamic perfectly. It says, often referred to as gold-collar professions, their importance in the structure of advanced economies far outweighs their numbers. It's a very small group of people for sure, but these top-tier policymakers and creators hold an absolutely outsized influence over the entire global system. They set the direction the rest of us follow. Let's jump to Section 5, the outsourcing revolution and breaking geographic boundaries. And actually, this brings us right back to our opening mystery. Because these high-level knowledge jobs deal purely in ideas, they're no longer tied down to one specific physical location. A medical transcriptionist in Bangalore and a CEO in New York are both operating in this massive, borderless, information-driven space. And because of that, we're seeing outsourcing itself totally evolve. We used to just talk about BPO, business process outsourcing, right? Transferring IT or call centers overseas to cut costs. But now we have KPO, knowledge process outsourcing. The whole industry has leveled up. We're relying on highly skilled workers handling complex stuff like intellectual property research, legal work, and R&D. The knowledge sector has truly gone global. But, it's not all perfectly smooth sailing, which leads us to our final stop, Section 6, the digital divide, and the cost of uneven growth. Because what happens when the entire world starts relying on a digital economy, but you can't even log on? This is the dark side of the network. The opportunities generated by ICT, information and communication technology, are distributed incredibly unevenly. We're looking at a harsh divide where developing countries and peripheral rural areas seriously lag behind developed nations and booming metropolitan centers. If your region lacks the basic infrastructure for connectivity, you are effectively locked out of those quaternary and quinary economies. No way around it. Which leaves us with a pretty heavy question to chew on. In an era where information is literal wealth, how quickly can your community provide ICT access? And what actually happens to the populations left off the digital map entirely? It's a profound, incredibly real challenge for the future of our global economy. Thank you all so much for hanging out with me for this explainer. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll catch you next time.